Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for checking out today's episode of Hardball Sports Talk. My name is Brandon. Joining me, like always, is my good friend Alex. Alex, how are you today?
Hoi, Brennan. Once I get myself settled in here, we'll be good to go.
Yeah,
Actually, done this before.
no, we're good. So we actually have a special guest for you guys today. We had this individual with us a few months ago. If you guys remember, we had Jake on the show when we did our sports bucket list. Jake is a diehard Milwaukee Brewers fan, and so I figured, what the heck? Like, if we're going to talk about the NL Central, let's get a Brewers fan on here. So I shot him a text, and Jake's going to come on and talk about the Brewers. He's not on right now, so just to basically save time because it is 8:30 our time right now in the evening. So we're going to get started without him, and then we'll add Jake on, and when he's on, he'll talk about the Brewers for us. So to get started here tonight, if you are ready, I believe you have the Chicago Cubs, and that's the team I have first on my list here.
Yes, I actually am ready. So we're talking about the Cubbies here. Everyone's lovable losers. I was looking at their team. They were kind of an offensive team. More than I expected because I didn't really know their key players. I knew a few of them. With Cody Bellinger and Dansby Swanson. Cody Bellinger was leading the team. Actually, was tied top of the team for home runs with 26 with Christopher Morel. Pat Wisdom had 23 home runs. Dan B. Swanson had 22 and Ian Happ at 21. So they had a couple of guys that can hit 20 plus home runs, which is pretty good. And their batting averages actually weren't bad at all either. Belly had an average of 307. Sevia Suzuki had 285. Nico Horner had 283, and Jan Gomes had 267, which I kind of forgot Jan Gomes was still there. That was a shocker to see. Their OPS's top guys were Belly again, of course. Suzuki with 842. Belly had 881. And Morel had 821. And they're speedy guys on the team. This team stole quite a few bases. Horner had 43, which led the way with the team. I believe he's an infielder too. Belly had 20, and Ian Happ had 14. There was a couple guys that had 13 and 12, but they didn't play as many games, so I didn't really count them as a. I mean, they led the team, I guess, but when you play fewer games and you get bases stolen, that's pretty good. Their offensive power and home runs, they were actually at league average with 196. They hit 196. They scored a lot of runs though. They had 100 or 819. The league average was 749. So they're able to hit some guys in, home runs, doubles, triples, and all that. Like I said, they knew how to score, and they stole a lot of bases. They were 140 stolen bases, and the league average was 117. So they have a lot of speed on their team. And they're just above league average in OPS with 751 and 734 was the league average. Pitching, on the other hand, they lost a few starters, injuries and stuff, but they kept their team ERA at 4.08, and the league average was 4.33. And they didn't quite strike out as many guys. They were actually under the league average with 1377. The league average was 1395. And surprisingly, they didn't really lose too many guys in the offseason. Probably the big name that they lost was Marcus Stroman to the Yankees. But their prospects coming up, they have quite a bit. They'll be able to slide a guy in there to fill the role. And Jameer Candelario went to Cincinnati. They added a few guys. Hector Neris from Houston. I believe he was a relief pitcher. They had a minor league contract for Dominic Smith. The big key was they ended up re-signing Cody Bellinger. 3 years, $80 million, I believe it was.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. I just remember it broke like really late at night, like 11 p.m. or something. They broke it that he ended up re-signing with them. So that was a good addition for them to re-sign him. I was looking at their farm system that they have. They have them ranked at number 2, and I was looking. They have some guys that are going to be. This is probably the most loaded they've had since I think 2015. And that was like Chris Bryant was in there. Who else was in that one?
Our good friend Javi.
Javi Baez, yeah, he was there, the favorite. But the top guy right now, Michael Bush, who's the infielder, he was number 4 overall in their farm system, number 51. And then would be he actually made the opening day roster. I didn't quite look at to see what he was hitting in spring training. Not that it matters too much, but if he did pretty good, then obviously they kept him on. Like I said, their farm system's pretty good. Their number 2 and number 3, I believe, are both pitchers on the system. They're 26th, and that's Cade Horton, 26 overall in MLB, and Owen Cassie, who's 47 overall in the MLB. So they got a lot of young guys ready to come up and fill in. But the most important guy, here's our connection here, and Brandon knows.
I was hoping you'd bring him up.
Oh yeah, I can't forget him. He's
No.
their number 1 overall prospect, number 16 in the MLB. His mother was in this movie, of Little Big League. You know, our good friend John Minch. That's
Listen to the
Pete.
interview. It's on Spotify. It's our pinned podcast. So if you haven't listened to that interview yet, give it a listen. We even talk about this player actually a little bit in that
Yeah.
podcast.
Good old Pete Crow Armstrong, friend of a friend show, I guess you could say, of the show. Right, friend, son.
Well, it's basically friend of a friend.
Friend of a friend, yeah, you know. There's connections if we needed to ask, you know. Not that we're going to, but I think the most big, I guess another key offseason addition, probably the big thing. They went out and hired Craig Counsell, who was the Brewers manager.
It's a good thing that Jake's not here yet.
Yeah, I didn't want to break his heart if he was on. But this guy knows how to coach. I believe he made the postseason. I think 5 out of the 6 times he was in the manager. And they were either first or second in the division. They actually didn't end up winning the World Series, but they made it far quite a bit. So I think that was the big key addition. They went out and got him, which was pretty good.
Yeah. When that news broke, I shot Jake a text. I'm like, "How you feeling, bud?" And let's just say I can't repeat those text messages on the air. We'll just say that.
That's fair.
So the Cubs' biggest rival, well, maybe after this offseason, who really knows who the biggest rival is anymore? Could be the Brewers. But historically speaking, is the St. Louis Cardinals, and that is the team that I have. If you just heard a big thud, I just dropped my phone. That's what that was. It's okay. But the Cardinals, they had a pretty busy offseason this year, but let's look over some of the key stats from last year's team. Leading them in home runs was Gorman, excuse me. He was their second baseman. He had 27. And then the more familiar names, Nolan Arenado, he hit 26, and Paul Goldschmidt hit 25. Batting average leaders, you have Jordan Walker. He was an outfielder for them. So technically, Jordan Walker did not lead this team in batting average. I didn't write down this guy's name, but they had somebody that had about a 20-point higher batting average, according to Baseball Reference. But he only played in 90 games. And for me, that's not good enough. I think to be considered a leader on your team or in a stat, especially like batting average and OPS, stuff like that, you have to play in a majority of your team games. In 95, I think it was not enough games for me. So by default, Jordan Walker, in my opinion, led the team in batting average with 276. Goldie hit 268, and then Nolan Arenado hit 268 also. OPS leaders actually was their catcher, Wilson Contreras, hit 826, and then Goldschmidt hit 810, and Nolan Gorman, the home run leader, had 805. So their OPS was a little underwhelming. Didn't really have any superstars on offense, but the team was a little down last year. I believe they finished last in the NL Central. So a couple of pitchers worth mentioning here. They had two starters with an earned run average under 4, which in modern day baseball, I think is a pretty good parameter to have. And that's Jordan Montgomery with a 342 and Steven Matz with 386. Offensively, though, this team very much struggled. They didn't score that well. League average for runs, as Alex said, was 748. They only scored 719 as a team, so about 30 runs under league average. So not great there. But they did hit 209 home runs, which is a little bit better than league average, which is 196. They were not the best base running team, only 101 stolen bases, average Alex says 117. And one thing they did do well, in my opinion, was they were limiting their strikeouts. League average for strikeouts was 1,395. They only struck out 1,326, and that's actually top or ninth least in Major League Baseball last year. So a few things to like there about their offensive approach was they hit for power without striking out. They just need to figure out how to get runners on base and drive in runs without the long ball is basically their biggest thing for this year. Pitching, however, was the team's Achilles heel. They allowed 829 runs, which was the 7th most in the major leagues. They didn't allow home runs, so that's something to build on right there. They only allowed 179 home runs, the 8th fewest in Major League Baseball. But they didn't strike anybody out. They only had 1,215 strikeouts, which was the 2nd fewest in Major League Baseball. So, which they're not giving up home runs, but they're not striking out either. So you're relying on your defense, and so I guess defense is probably. I didn't look at their defensive stats, but if you're not striking out people, you're not allowing home runs, and they're still allowing top 10 runs, you probably got a defensive problem. And then also they had the 7th worst strikeout to walk ratio in Major League Baseball with a 2.29. So, yeah, pitching and defense was probably this team's Achilles heel. The offense, like I said, they hit for power for pretty well anyways, but couldn't score runs. So they need to get base runners on base and figure out a way to drive them in. That's their biggest thing for this year. And then better pitching. So what they do? Well, they added a lot of players in free agency this year. They got infielder Brandon Crawford, who spent all of the year with the Giants. He's a good bat, going to help out a lot here. They brought in pitchers Kanan Middleton. He was with the White Sox and Yankees last year. Andrew Kittredge from Tampa Bay. So got helping out the bullpen a little bit. Starting pitcher, they basically rebuilt their rotation. They brought in Sonny Gray from Minnesota, Kyle Gibson from Baltimore, and Lance Lynn, who was played with the White Sox and the Dodgers last year. And then they also brought back first baseman Matt Carpenter. He spent majority of his early career with the Cardinals and came back after spending time with the Padres last year. A couple of players they lost. They lost Tyler O'Neill to Boston. Adam Wainwright retired. And then I believe this individual played for the Tigers. The name sounds very familiar, so I'm assuming that's where I know him from. Drew Verhagen. He was with the Cardinals last year. And
he was a pitcher for the Tigers.
Yeah. Well, now he's a pitcher in Japan. So, yeah, he was with the Cardinals last year. Now he's over in Japan. So, a couple losses there, but I think their additions are a lot better than their subtractions, personally, especially bringing in like Matt Carpenter and Sonny Gray and Brandon Crawford. Those are 3 guys right there that they might be past their prime, but they're still quality big league players, and I think they can help this team. A few key prospects here. I've checked prospects lists on MLB.com on a regular basis. One thing I've never really seen before is what I saw with the Cardinals page. Their top 5. Okay, so if you've ever gone on MLB's prospect page, it'll tell you the estimated time of arrival to the Major League Baseball. It's probably not the most accurate thing on the planet, but it's just a good parameter. Being like, all right, this guy will could make it by 2027. Their top 5 or 6 prospects, I think it was 5, all are projected to make or at least contribute to the major league team this year. That is something I've never seen before. Is your top 5 prospects are right there being major league ready. I mean, it could have happened before. I don't pay super close attention, but like I said, I check these things every once in a while, and I've never seen that before. So they're prospects that are close to being ready. Mason Wynn, he's a shortstop. I believe he actually made the team out of camp, or he is going to make the team out of camp. And then you got a couple pitchers here. Hentz and Roby. They're both in the top 100. And then Victor Scott is an outfielder. He's their 4th-ranked prospect. And then Thomas McGeese, infielder. He's their 5th top-ranked prospect. And according to MLB.com, all 5 of these guys will be contributors this year for the Cardinals, or at least make their debut. For their top 100 prospects, the top 3 win. He's 43rd overall in Major League Baseball. Hence 64th, and Roby is 99. It's a top-heavy system, though. They don't really have a lot of depth outside of those 3 guys for quality big league talent, and they're the 23rd ranked system according to MLB.com. So it's the Cardinals. My entire life have been that team of model consistency. It's kind of like, I mean, a football comparison here would probably be like the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, they're just always good and they know how to draft and develop players. But the last couple of years, the Cardinals have kind of struggled. Last year, losing the division, like literally finishing dead last place in the division. That's just unheard of for the Cardinals. So it'll be interesting to see if these offseason acquisitions help them grow. But one team that a lot of people are expecting to finish last place in the division this year is the Pittsburgh Pirates, who Alex is going to talk to us about now.
Nice transition there, Brandon.
You know, I've been pretty good on those last couple of episodes, I might say.
You have to tell me your secret, because I'm not used to transitioning to our next topic. Other than, the Pirates here, I will say this. They do not have a lot of power. They were a very powerless team. They had a few guys that hit 20 plus. Jack, I'm going to butcher his name, Sunwitsky. He hit 26. Brian Reynolds hit 24, and Ke'Bryan Hayes hit 15. Their batting average was all right. Ke'Bryan Hayes led the way with 271. Brian Reynolds hit 263. Longtime Pirate, one of a mutual friend's favorite, Andrew McCutchen, had hit 256, and Connor Joe hit 247.
I'm going to interrupt you here.
Yeah.
That mutual friend, his favorite player is Will Rhymes.
No, that's a deep cut that only 3 of us know about, but I agree. That is true. Will Rhymes is his favorite player. Just look at his OPS, which Jackson Witzke led the way with 793. Brian Reynolds led the way with 790. Sorry, I couldn't read my handwriting. Very terrible. McCutchen hit 776, and Hayes with OPS of 762. So they're all right for their team with their OPSs. This team didn't have a lot of speed either. They had, oh boy, I'm going to butcher this guy's name too. G. Juan Bay had 24 stolen bases. Sunwitsky had 13. Brian Reynolds had 12, and McCutchen had 11. So they had a few guys that had double-digit steals. But like I said, this team offensively lacked power and home runs. They were below average. They were actually third to last with 159 home runs out of 196 for the league average. And if you can't hit home runs, you want to try to score runs. And they were below average in scoring runs as well. They only scored 692. The league average was 748. So they were a little bit slow on the scoring too. And they were actually dead even with the league average in stolen bases at 117. So that's, I guess, kind of positive because you're about average. You weren't below it. So one good thing for the Pirates. And their OPS was actually below with .707. And the league average was .734. So therefore, you want to go to your pitching. And the pitching staff got rocked quite a bit. They had an average of 460, 4.60 ERA. And they were below average in strikeouts with 1363. They had quite a bit of losses in free agency who have not signed anywhere, so that doesn't tell you how the team is. Uh, Basically, the only two guys that they lost that were on the roster, they actually got minor league contracts. One to Detroit and one to the Yankees. Ryan Vilade was the Tigers minor league signer, and Yuri De Los Santos went to the Yankees for a minor league contract. So you think they would try to go and add offensive power? Granted, one of their star players, I believe he did get injured last year. He's going to be one of the exciting ones in O'Neal Cruz. I think he's coming back from a wrist injury, or was that the year before? I don't quite
Well,
remember.
I have no idea. But
Anyways, their shortstop.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure he's come back from some type of injury. Anyways, so they went out and got some veteran pitching in Aroldis Chapman and Martin Perez from the Texas Rangers. Michael Taylor from Minnesota, who's an outfielder. First baseman Rowdy Tellez from Milwaukee.
that
They went and
dude's a
got
beast too.
Is he?
Have you? Yeah, the guy. Okay, so do you remember that? This is one of our famous rabbit trails.
Perfect.
Do you remember that scene from Angels in the Outfield where they're playing basically in the old dump or whatever it was, or like old car lot, and
Yeah.
that big kid comes up and Mel Clark
Yeah.
is like, "Oh, we got Babe Ruth."
Yeah.
Yeah, that kid grew up to be Rowdy Tellez.
Oh,
Like
all right.
that's what he's built like. Is that kid like as an
Okay.
adult?
That makes sense.
Yeah,
That's cool. I did not know that. I'll have to check him out.
that's
Um,
actually not Rowdy Tellez. If you're out there listening, I'm just saying that's what he would look like as an adult or as a
my brain's
child.
supposed to just say it. No one's gonna go check this stuff. Come on. Anyways, moving on. They went and got a veteran catcher in Yasmani Grandal from the Chicago White Sox. They also did re-sign Andrew McCutchen. One of their hot prospects, who was a pitcher, I believe he ended up making the opening day roster. Jerry Jones, he's number 62 overall in the MLB. They have a few guys in their system that are pretty good. Actually, 6 of their top 10 prospects are pitchers. And if there's one thing about Pirates pitching staff and your prospect, you're going to spend a year in Pittsburgh and then you're going to get traded. That's just what they do. I don't know why. But some of the big names that they've ended up trading away, Joe Musgrove, who was an All-Star in 21, Jameson Talion, who's on the cusp of being an All-Star or could be an All-Star, and then Garrett Cole, who's an All-Star and dominant pitcher right now for the New York Yankees. That just to name a few. There's actually plenty more. So yeah, I would say if you're a pitcher for the Pirates, you're probably not going to be around much longer. For whatever reason, they like to trade them away. But they ended up having the 9th overall farming system or ranking in the farm system. So I guess that's something to look forward to. The one thing that kind of shocked me was they extended the contract of Derek Shelton last year. This guy has not finished above 4th at all in his time since 4 years. I think he's finished 5th and 4th. So I'm not sure why they're extending him. Maybe they're just giving him another chance, but yeah, I'm a little bit confused by why you'd extend him if
I mean,
he has.
I'm not saying fire him, but like the Pirates
They
have
suck.
not.
Yeah,
They're not putting a good product on the field. So
yeah,
the manager can only do so much with what he's given. Now I question the extension. Also, I didn't know they extended him.
yeah,
That's kind of normally
yeah,
what you do is like to go with the Astros, for example. they had Bo Porter as their manager when they were doing absolutely brutal. And then when the team was getting ready to win, they brought in AJ Hinch. And then
Mhm.
AJ Hinch was the manager that brought them to the World Series. And I know there's other things with that World Series we won't talk about today. But that's typically what teams do is they
There's a
have a
thing called
manager based.
talent, and the Pirates don't have it.
No, they don't. I will say this: they have a pitcher. I don't know if I didn't hear you mention his name, but they
Oh,
have a
yeah,
product. They're
the number 1, Paul
yeah,
Skeens. Yeah,
yeah.
that dude can pitch, that's for like I said, he's probably not gonna be around Pittsburgh much longer. Like, give him a year or 2, and then he's gonna get traded, so,
I mean,
but
I
yeah.
think they'll probably keep him for 3 or 4 years and then flip him. That's typically what they'll do is 3 to 4 years, and then because they're a small market team, so that's what small market teams do is they can't afford to compete with the Yankees and the Dodgers on signing these players, so they basically flip them for what they can get. But Paul Skeens, I am not. I think the Tigers have drafted way too many pitchers in the first round in the last 15 years, and I'm kind of done with it. Paul Skeens was different. I
Yeah,
kind of wanted him.
yeah.
No, we'll talk about Max Clark on Friday. That's when we're talking about the Tigers, and I'll give my opinions on Max Clark and the rest of the prospects then. But I really like Paul Skeens, and that dude's a stud. Like
Mhm.
he's gonna
I
be the ace of his staff for a long time.
Yeah. I think what's interesting too is he transferred out of the Air Force Academy, to the LSU Tigers, so I don't know how that service works for him, if he has to go back and serve his time or whatnot, but I'd be curious to see what happens with him. I don't know how it works for, uh, the MLB, but I know in the NFL, if you work for a academy, you have to get a special request from, I
So
think, the
I
Secretary of Defense.
Yeah, so I think with what the service academy schools is, I think after the second year, you basically can say I'm going to continue or I'm out.
Okay,
So as long as he said I'm out before the second year, he's good.
gotcha. Okay.
Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure
Oh,
that's what
no,
it
I'm gonna
is.
quote you on that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know you
there's
are.
no doubt I am.
I know you are. And then when I'm wrong, you'd be like, Brandon doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
well, that's kind of a given, but, you know.
All right. You got anything else about the Pirates?
Um, no, it's just, they probably have one of the best stadiums, I would say. That's definitely on my bucket list. I don't know about how you feel about their stadium, but I
Oh,
think
I
that's
love
one
their stadium.
positive.
It is by far the most beautiful ballpark in the league. Like they have, and I've showed it to my wife. My wife has no baseball interest whatsoever, and I showed her a picture of the stadium, and she goes, "Oh my word, I want to go there." Like that's and Colorado. I showed her Colorado's too, and she wants to go there too. So
Yeah.
those are probably the best two for uh views behind. And Jake's just jumping on with us. How's it going, Jake?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. So I'm going to talk about the Cincinnati Reds, and then we'll have you talk about the Brewers, and then we'll predict the division. So if you don't have your 5 teams ranked, hurry up and do that real quick while I'm talking about the Reds.
Sounds good.
All right. So the Reds this offseason, we'll talk about their last year's.
Here we
Their
go,
home run leader
Brendan,
last
your
year was
internet.
Spencer Steer. He's their first base. My internet being stupid already.
And yeah, you're kind of cutting in and out. That's not good for the
I'll
podcast,
turn my
man.
phone. No, it's not.
Come on.
All right, we'll try it
We have a
again.
guest on, and this is how we're treating our guests with you having
Yep.
choppy internet.
It
Okay.
happens every time. So the Cincinnati Reds, their leading home run last year was first baseman Spencer Steer. He hit 23. Second place in their home run leader was their center fielder TJ Friedel. He had 18, and then Jonathan India had 17. There was speculation this offseason that they would trade Jonathan India. They ended up keeping him. He was rookie of the year his rookie year and hasn't really built on off that, but hopefully for his sake he can turn things around this year. Their RBI leaders last year, they didn't really have a lot of RBIs, but Spencer Steer led the team with 86. Friedel had 66, and then outfielder Jake Fraley had 65. They did have speed, though. stolen bases, phenom shortstop LED Le Cruz had 35 last year. Friedel had 27, and Jake Freely had 21. So they were able to run the bases pretty well. And then OPS for last year, Matt McLean had an 864, Will Benson had an 863, Spencer Steer had 820, and Friedel had an 819. So they had a few guys who had decent power last year. They scored 783 runs last year, ninth best in Major League Baseball. As we've said, league average is 748. They were just about average, though, in home runs. League average was 196. They had 198. So about league average with power there. But like I said, they had a lot of speed. 190 stolen bases, tops in Major League Baseball. And they were actually noticeably ahead in that category. Second place was 166. They were almost 30 stolen bases more than second place, which is rather impressive. But they did strike out a lot. 1,500 team strikeouts, and that's the fifth most in baseball. Pitching, on the other hand, their pitching was not good last year. They had a team ERA of 483, which was the sixth worst in baseball. Allowed 821 runs, seventh worst in baseball. And they were basically league average with 1,381 strikeouts. League average was 1,395, so just below average on that. And then they also walked 613 batters, which was the fourth most in Major League Baseball. So they could hit, but they really weren't good at pitching last year. So that's going to be their big thing this year if they want to compete for the division like a lot of people think they will. Their key losses from last year's team, they lost Joey Votto, who is now up in Toronto on a minor league contract. Kurt Casale, a catcher, he's down in Miami now. And then Harrison Bader, their center fielders with the Mets. They did add Santiago Espanol from Toronto, Tony Kemp from Oakland, and then former Tiger Jeimer Candelario from the Cubs most recently. So they helped out their offense, but they didn't really bring any impact pitchers. So it'll be interesting to see how the pitching develops this year. Top prospects or prospects that make an impact this year. Noelvi Marte made his big league debut last season. He's an infielder. Rhett Lauder's a pitcher that was drafted out of college. Second pitcher behind Skeens last year. He has a chance to make it into the big leagues this year. And then Connor Phillips, a pitcher, made his big league debut last year, should be in the mix this year. Their top 100 prospects, we got Noel Marte, the infielder, Rhett Lauder, the pitcher, Edwin Arroyo, he's a shortstop. He's number 67. And then Connor Phillips and Chase Petty are also top 100 prospects. According to MLB.com, they have the 10th best farm system in Major League Baseball. So the future has some pieces there that the prospects people like. So we'll see what happens with the Reds. The Reds, I've seen a lot of people pick the Reds to win the division this year. One team that's been doing really well in the division the last few years is the Brewers, which Jake is going to talk to us about. Jake, what do you think about the Brewers this year?
Yeah, so this is definitely going to be an interesting year for them in terms of finding a way to keep going with their somewhat dominance of the Central, or their consistency of being up in the top teams of the Central, while also coping or working with the losses that they had this offseason, which was one of the most up and down off seasons you can say in recent history for the Brewers, in my opinion, especially starting off with the loss of Corbin Burns with that trade with the Orioles. I'll admit I was one of the first ones when you saw the return. I had no idea who these two guys were, but it definitely seemed like it seemed like we got shortchanged. But then looking back at it now and looking at the springs that both of them had in DL Hall and Joey Ortiz, I think both of them do have that probability of being, um, future mainstays for the Brewers. I do believe both of them made the opening day roster. I know for certain Joey Ortiz did, infielder, shortstop, and third base mostly, and I believe DL Hall made it as well. He'll probably be our second or third starter against the Mets in the upcoming like opening series. Um, but looking at it too, I mean, we lost one of our home run leaders, Rowdy Tellez. He went to the Pirates, free agent deal there. We traded Tyrone Taylor, who was a consistent fourth outfielder for us pretty much ever since he came up. Um, he'll give you that spot start, and his numbers were never phenomenal, but he did exactly what he was there to do. He was that great bench bat that could come in and give you that hit when you needed. Looking at what he did in the playoffs, in the wild card series against the Diamondbacks last year, hit that 2-run home run early in the game to kind of get us going. Unfortunately, we couldn't keep that lead, but he was able to just kind of like get us started, and unfortunately we couldn't build off of that. But he did what he was there to do. And then Adrian Hauser was also a consistent man in our rotation. Even though his stats were kind of all over the place, it seemed he was always there to, like be like that fourth starter, fourth starter who can give you, some good innings. So like the return on that remains to be seen. We have a picture. His name was Coleman Krill from that one. Remains to be seen on that what he's going to do. I think he's in Double A or Triple A right now, so there is a chance we see him this year in the majors. We know how much the Brewers love to do uh, the transaction game of sending players up and down depending on their usage. So either if someone's not getting used, they'll send them down, send up another guy so he could get some more innings. Or if someone's been used a whole lot, they'll send him down and pick up a fresh arm. So we play that transaction game a lot, and I think it's possible that we see him this year in the majors. But I mean, looking at it, we got some pretty big additions as well. I already mentioned Joey Ortiz and DL Hall. Jackson Churio, number 2 prospect in the majors by most publications. He's made the opening day roster. If he starts or not, that's the question. But he's 20, so he's doing more than probably any of us could have ever dreamed, especially given what stages we're at in our current lives. But I mean, he'll be like 20 years and 17 days or something, which would be like the second or third youngest opening day starting center fielder if he does start in center field that day. Also, picking up Rhys Hoskins was a huge move for the Brewers. We've needed that first base kind of threat, and um, Rowdy Tellez had his moments, but with last year him being injured for half the year, and he was just kind of falling off the table. Same thing with Vogelback that we had a couple years ago. So we've kind of had these guys that were hot when they started and then kind of fell off. So him coming off the knee injury, I think played into our favor in terms of maybe like a lack of market. But I'm so glad that we got him. It's a very good deal for him. It's a 2-year deal, but the second year is a mutual option, I believe. So if he has a great year, it's awesome for us and even better for him. I've heard nothing but nice things about him, what his character is, how he is, both on and off the field. I believe if we're excluding his rookie year and the COVID year, I think he's hit like 27 or more home runs every year he's been in the majors. So that's going to be a great offensive weapon in our batting lineup. Also looking at it, Eric Haas, the former Detroit Tiger and almost Cleveland Guardian for a little bit. I don't know if you can call that a key addition or not, but we signed him in, I believe, November. And he's been hitting the crap out of the ball in spring training. He's got like 4 or 5 home runs, batting just under like 500. So he's fighting for a spot on the roster, and I think the Brewers are gonna wait till the last possible moment to make that decision. Because how do you factor in having 3 catchers on your roster, especially with the addition of Gary Sanchez most recently? He's not going anywhere. You're not going to sign him to the deal that you do for him to be cut in spring training. Haas is, I believe, the more cuttable option just due to his contract. However, the way he's performed in spring, and I know that doesn't always carry over to the regular season, how can you not justify keeping him on the roster for the season? I think we start with 3 catchers and go from there. Who knows what Sanchez is going to do? I'd feel almost a little bit better dropping him than I would Haas at this moment. But yeah, so it's gonna be a great year. Hopefully, Woodruff's injury rehabs well. It looks like it's going almost ahead of schedule. So it looks like he's gonna take the whole 2024 off to recover, and hopefully he'll be back and as good as he has been in 25.
So with Haas, the Tigers actually were in that similar situation with him. Basically, his whole career was his bat's really good, but like his catching game isn't. So they actually started playing him in left field and first base just to keep him on the roster, and so he can catch and he can play catcher for left field and first base, not at a high level or anything like that. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong; he's not going to win a Gold Glove out or anything like that. But I mean,
Well,
it does give you options though, having a guy like Haas that can play multiple positions. Again,
yeah.
not at a high level, but like at least be respectable.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you never know. I mean, look at William Contreras. When we traded for him last offseason, he was known as a bat first catcher, and he was one of our best hitters on the team. So that stayed. But the Brewers have a phenomenal pitching department. So, in terms of growing their pitching, both in system and so like both homegrown prospects and players coming in from outside like our minor league. So whether like trades or like minor league free agents and stuff, we do have a history of developing good pitchers, and we also have we also have a really good job of developing catchers. My bad. William Contreras was one of the best defensive catchers in the majors last year. He might not win. He actually has a chance to win a Gold Glove, I believe. Now that Molina's out of the way, I believe one of his years in Milwaukee, he will be a Gold Glove finalist.
Yeah, that's for sure. The Brewers are good with that. So now we're gonna predict the division. Like I was telling Alex before we went on the air, we feel a lot more comfortable with him. I didn't realize it'd be this much of a difference. I feel like really confident ranking the American League divisions so far in the National League. I don't know if the divisions are closer in the National League or what, but it just feels a lot harder to rank them. But we're gonna try to do that for you guys here. So we'll all give us our fifth ranked team and then move our way up to the first ranked team. So at number 5, I have the Pittsburgh Pirates. They have some nice young prospects. We talked about Paul Skeens and the other pitchers they got. But like Alex said, they don't have any offense, and you need offense to win games. And the pitching, yeah, not all of them are ready either. I don't know if they're going to have all of them in the big leagues this year or not. And yeah, so I just don't see this team winning too many games this year. So I have the Pirates in last place. Alex, how about you?
Yeah, same. I have them finishing dead last. Like pretty much what we kind of covered already.
And then Jake.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I have the Pirates at 5. I mean, I agree with you. You need offense to win games, but looking at the Brewers, their offense hasn't been a juggernaut. It hasn't been absolutely lights out the last couple of seasons. However, their pitching staff is just overall so much better than I believe the Pirates pitching staff is. So even if the Pirates were to squeak across 1 or 2 runs, yeah, they have Bednar in their as their closer. I just don't know if they can keep that lead with their pitching staff. So yeah, Pirates at 5.
Number 4, basically 1 to 4. I had problems. This is kind of like the AL Central with those
Yeah.
teams. 1 to 4 was tough, and then 5 was the White Sox. It's kind of like that here too. At number 4, I put the St. Louis Cardinals. I really liked what they did this offseason. I really do. Adding Sonny Gray and Matt Carpenter and some of the pieces they're bringing back. I just think that the other teams and the other 3 teams are just better, and that's basically why I put them at 4. Just simple as that. I just like the other teams more. How about you guys? Alex, you go
Yeah,
first.
I also had them at number 4. Just because I have them at number 4. Like you said, it's hard to rank these NL teams because we don't really follow them too much. And especially this division. So yeah, I have the Cardinals at number 4.
Okay, yeah, this is where we differ. I have the Reds at 4. I totally agree with you too, though. 1 through 4 in this division is definitely a total crapshoot. I don't think anyone necessarily stands out as someone who can pull away. I mean, I have my thoughts, obviously, but thinking realistically, yeah, 1 through 4, total crapshoot. Who's going to do who? So I have the Reds. I think just because they're still so young, they have the potential. So I can see them maybe sneaking up to third. But I just think overall, given the rest of the teams in the division, I think it'll be like a close fourth.
So at 3, don't kill me, Jake, but I have the Brewers at 3. I know. I think the loss of Council is going to be a big loss for them. And I know a manager doesn't impact more than probably 10 games in a season at the win-loss record, but I just think that's going to be a huge loss for them. I can't think of what was the pitcher you guys traded to Baltimore? I can't think of his name. Was that
Burns?
Burns? Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you guys got a couple pieces back for him, but it just felt like, it wasn't a bad offseason, but I think the other two teams, the Cubs and the Reds, I just like their young talent more. So that's why I have the Brewers at 3.
Yeah. I'm going to reiterate this because we kind of say it every time we rank. Me and Brendan don't know how we're ranking these. So it sounds like I'm copying off of him. I pretty much am. That's just because we don't really know how we're ranking these. But I do have the Brewers at 3. The big loss, is the manager. I mean, he's finished first or second from, I think, 5 out of 6 times. I don't remember how long he was the manager there. But yeah, when you lose someone like that, and a Cy Young candidate, and you trade him away, that's going to hurt your team a little bit. So I have the Brewers at 3.
Yeah. Both of your guys' like explanations and your rankings, I don't fault you for them. Obviously, again, like you said, looking at it, you lose a Cy Young contender, plus one of the winningest manager in team history. And I mean, I could see where you guys are thinking third. I have the Cubs third. Again, total crapshoot 1 through 4, and nothing really struck them as second or third. As I kind of placing them there. I think they'll be around the same they were last year. I don't see anything about their team that necessarily stands out. I know they have Pete Crow Armstrong, AAA right now. So when he comes up, I can see them maybe making a run for a while when he's up there. I don't know how they're going to do though. So I have them at 3.
We say almost friend of the show, Pete Crow Armstrong, around here because we have. I have the Cubs at number 2. I like their young players. I think they have a chance at, like you said, 1 to 4 in this division is a crapshoot. So, any of these 4 teams, I could see winning this division, or I could see them in 4th place. I just like the young players, and then with the addition of Council gets the best out of his players. He did that in Milwaukee. I mean, Milwaukee. I'm not saying Milwaukee's had bad players or anything like that, but they just never went out and signed the big free agents because Milwaukee's a small market. Now you give them a situation where ownership's not afraid to spend, and you can give them a better roster. I just like that combination. So I have the Cubs at 2 for this year, though. I still think they might be a couple years away, or a year or 2 away. But for this year, I have them finishing second. Alex?
Brandon, we finally differ. I actually have the
Yes.
Reds finishing second. They have a lot of young talent. One of my favorite players to watch is actually Ellie De La Cruz. Just the talent he has. I'm really sad that Mr. Joey Votto's not there anymore. He was always fun to watch. And I can't remember when this happened, but one of the most impressive stats that he had is it was the first time in his career, and this would have been 3-4 years ago, that he actually popped out to first base as a left-handed hitter. I'd have to go back and find that stat, but throughout his whole MLB career, he finally popped out to first base, which is kind of unheard of, especially being a power left-handed hitter. But yeah, I like the Reds as a number 2 team sneaking in the wild card spot. Yeah, I said it.
Okay. Not bad. I have the Cardinals at 2. Based off of last season, I think you just throw that out. Last season was an anomaly for the Cardinals. They have always been, at least in my lifetime, always kind of been that perennial contender, first or second in the division, given like 1 or 2 bad years in there. Last year was just a bunch of guys I think underperforming. So like even a little bit older, Goldschmidt's like 36, Arenado's like just crossed 30, I believe, and then you got Lance Lynn, who's 35. Sonny Gray is around that same age too. So and Matt Carpenter's 36, 37. So they are they are a little bit of an older team, especially given the additions that they just picked up. But everyone on that team is a high performer and has proven to be a high performer in the past. So I think throwing out last year, total anomaly. I think they're coming into 2 slot just because they have like they're a little more hungry, a little more to prove because of how last year turned out for them. So they're my 2 this year.
And then process of elimination, I have the Reds winning this division. And again, it was a crapshoot between 1 and 4. I basically felt like I was rolling a dice and doing that for what Alex likes doing with his football picks. But I like the young players here, like Alex said, De La Cruz, Hunter Green, their young pitcher. I think he's going to take a big step this year. They got some nice young players on the roster. Yeah, having a clubhouse guy like Joey Votto leave is going to hurt them. Even production-wise, he was still producing a little bit. But just having a veteran presence like that in the clubhouse, I don't think you can really put a number on that. Behind the scenes, we don't see that, but I think it actually does impact the locker room and the guys. So I'll be curious to see what kind of impact that does have. But I still think this team has the talent, and I have them winning this division. So Alex, you are up with, I think, the Cubs.
Yeah, I did find that stat. Joey Votto played in 1,591 games before he popped out to first base.
That's impressive.
That's what I was saying. That's a crazy stat. But yeah, I have the Cubs winning this division. With them re-signing Cody Bellinger again, and adding Craig Counsell, kind of like Brandon said, he's going to get the best out of the players. And then you have almost friend of the show, Pete Crow in the minor leagues, probably going to be called up this year at some point, due to injury or hitting the ball well. So I have the Cubs winning the division.
Well, I mean, like
but then here's the homer pick.
Yeah, process of elimination. Again, I have the Brewers in first. Again, I have them continuing their streak of I guess dominance in the Central, even if it might not look like dominance. I have them winning the Central this year. Yeah, even though the losses are going to hurt at the beginning of the year, I think once the team gets going, they'll definitely pick up their production both on the offensive side and the defense and pitching side. It'll be interesting to see how Murphy manages, but he's actually done some things that I'm feeling a lot more comfortable about than like Counsell was. Murphy is one of those guys who is like talking to the media and like kind of like giving things straight up, and Counsell was a little bit more of a well, kind of like not laid back, but more just kind of like reserved about it. And Murphy's like more outgoing about it, and he seems to have a really good rapport with the players. So like giving everyone nicknames, he gave, I believe it was Safri, like he nicknamed like Pee Wee Reese, or someone on the team he nicknamed like Pee Wee Reese. We had a player who's in our minor league camp now, but Brewer Hicklin, he nicknamed him Bernie Brewer. So like like he's got the rapport with the players that I hadn't heard anything about with Counsell. And again, like with the additions, Hoskins, Hall, Ortiz, Churio, Haas, Sanchez, I think we're really going to put it together, and it might come down to the last game of the year. But I have the Brewers winning the Central.
You know what's great is you go look at on YouTube right now or type in AL Central, and a lot of people are going to have the Tigers for whatever reason win that division. I've seen that a lot. The 2 Tigers fans on this podcast are like, "There's no way that the Tigers are winning that division."
Yeah, no.
And then you go to the NL Central, and I did a little bit of research. I don't base my picks on other people's picks. I watch other people's picks just to see what they have to say about the teams and stuff like that. And the people I watched, I didn't see many Brewers people out there. So it's kind of funny. The one Brewers fan we have is, the Brewers won this division.
Yeah, what can I say?
But you also know your baseball, so I'm just giving you crap. Like
Yeah,
like we all said, 1 to 4 is a crapshoot in this division. So
yeah. I mean, I would be
so
upset if the Brewers finished fourth, but like depending on obviously like how the season played out, I'd be like, you know what, understandable. If it
yeah.
was the fact that the Cubs, Cardinals, and Reds were playing like out of their mind ball, and the Brewers were like playing like just a little bit below that, yes, I'd be upset. But I'm like, you know what, okay. But if the Brewers just straight up stink this year and everyone else is playing well, then I will be like a lot more upset.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. It's always fun having you on. We'll have you
Yeah.
on again some other time.
Glad to
We'll
join.
figure.
Glad to help you out.
Yeah. That is all we have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. Be sure to like us on Facebook and on Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. It helps us grow. And we've referenced this interview probably 5 times in the episode, but if you have not listened to John Minch episode yet, please do. It's a great time. And we did talk about Peter Crow Armstrong. It's a really cool interview there. So if you haven't listened to that one yet, please do. Thank you guys so much for checking us out, and go Tigers.
Go Brewers.